Recording now. Everybody keep the 4-letter words to a minimum. Okay, everybody ready?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. I'm gonna fire up the inspect tool on this first off just to get it going, because we're gonna console log some things. First thing I'm gonna show you is the problem with JavaScript and what reducers and the reducer method basically takes care of. And I'm gonna show you that right in the app. We're just gonna create a small example here. I'm gonna call a const of we'll call it object1. And we're going to set that equal to an object that's going to have a name key and a value of Joshua. All right, so now if we console log object1, we'll do that right here. Object1, we'll save that. And if we look in our console, it's compiling. There we go. You can see it kind of popped up with all this other stuff. We got a name of Joshua. Now, I'm going to make another const called object2, and I'm going to set that equal to object1. So in theory, we have a new version, OGJ. That's awesome. All right, so in theory, we have a new copy of object1 called object2. And we're going to go one level deeper. We'll create object3. And we're going to set that equal to object2. So now we have 2 copies of that, let's say. All right, now let's say I want to change the name on my object3. I want to change that name to somebody else. So I'm going to say object3.name. And I want to set that equal to David. All right, so I'm going to basically, object1 should have the name of Joshua. Object2 should have the name of Joshua. Object3 should have the name of David. So I'm going to console log object3, and I'm going to show you something interesting. Okay, so we're this one should be, this console log should be Joshua. Object3 should be David, right? Watch what happens in our console. Wow, did you see that? They're all David.
Oh.
Yep.
Anybody know why that is?
Because I have a powerful name.
That's a good one.
Yeah. It's basically the way JavaScript is set up, the way it's structured, is that when you create an object in JavaScript, it assigns it to a specific place in the computer memory. And when you create a copy of that object, it just basically creates an arrow that points it to that specific place in memory rather than creating a new spot. So as we keep creating these objects or supposedly copies of these objects, it's still pointing at the same original location of that object. So when you modify it, it runs all the way up the chain to the end of the arrow and changes it. So that's the problem where, and these are all const variables, they're not supposed to be mutable, right?
Mm-hmm.
All objects in JavaScript are mutable. So this is where you got to be careful. And that's the problem JavaScript has, and that's what a reducer helps fix, and Redux when they start working together. A reducer is, in theory, what is called as a pure function. Everybody remember what a pure function is called? I think we went over that in Unit 2. What a pure function is, what the definition of a pure function is.
Can you give us a refresher?
Yeah, a pure function is a function with no side effects. It depends on nothing. It is raw JavaScript function. And we use a pure function to create copies of what's going to be considered an initial state, or where our state starts at. And we'll use that reducer to create copies of that and return that to our project as copies of state. So the original state that we start with never changes. And that eliminates this problem. Everybody follow?
Yes, please.
All right. Well, let's get started. Let's create a reducer. So we're going to create a reducer that's going to handle our cart state. All right. I was going to put them all together in one reducer, but we never changed the data object. So there's no really sense in even creating a reducer for that. So we're just going to create one for our cart and all our functionality of our cart. That's going to make it a pure function that doesn't change the initial state of the cart. So to do that, we're going to, in source here, we're going to create a new folder, and we're just going to call it reducers. And you'll see this a lot, even though you're making one, you'll normally have multiple reducers in a larger project that control different types of state all the way through the project. So in here, we'll make a new file. We'll call it, we'll just call it reducer, or we'll call it cart reducer. .js. All right, so now we have a cart reducer file. And you're going to notice that in here, there's going to be no bringing in React. There's going to be none of that. It's strictly a pure function. It does not depend on any libraries or frameworks. It's raw JavaScript, and that's what makes it work. So before we do that, let's take a look at our data and see what our initial state needs to look like. So if we go into app.js, we can go ahead and we're going to go ahead and comment all this stuff out for now. Don't need that anymore. Our cart has an items array and a total of 0. So this right here would be considered our initial state, our starting value of state, which we have set in this useState hook. So we're going to set that in our reducer. And we'll set that by, we'll just call const initial state. And we're going to set that equal to an object that has items, which is just going to be an empty array, and a total that's going to be equal to an integer of 0. So we have our initial state. All right, and we're going to also be exporting this because we're going to call this in later on when we run our use reducer method. So just type in export in front of this. We're going to be bringing these in differently, so there won't be an export default. And the next thing we're doing is we're going to create our reducer, which is going to be an export of a function. And we're going to call it cart reducer, just like the name of the file. And a reducer takes in 2 parameters. The first thing it takes in is state. And the next parameter is called an action. And what the action is it's going to tell this reducer what action to take by what value it gets. So it's going to say, like, if I get a value of adding something to a cart, it's going to have an action that says this is what we go through to add that to the cart. And then it's going to have another one, like maybe removing items from a cart. It's going to have an action for removing items from that cart. And how we do this inside of reducer is we use what they call the switch case method. Now you can run a reducer with if-else statements, but it gets very, very large in a hurry if you're doing that, especially with a complex reducer. So the best way to do this is to run a switch case method, which starts basically by just typing the word switch. And then in the switch, you got to give it what's going to trigger these cases. So in our case, it's going to be the action, which we're getting from our parameter that we're going to send in, and it's going to be the word type, because we're going to give it an action type, and each type is going to control a different part of the state. So in our action type, we open this up, and the first thing you always want to put in here is the default value. So in case this reducer function runs and doesn't have an action, it's going to return the default value, which our default value is almost always going to be state. So if we call the reducer and we do no action to it, whatever, it's still going to return a value, and it's going to return our state value, whatever it currently is at the time, or the default state. So let's write our first case, which is the word case. And our case is going to be, now this is convention 2 as far as what the case is, and it's a string value, and we're going to have all capital letters and underscores, and it's going to be, let's say, add cart. And later on, we'll get into how you assign these to variables, because JavaScript and errors, as far as typos, if it's a string value that you mistype, it won't give you an error in the console. It won't tell you something's wrong. It just won't work. But if you assign these strings to a constant variable and you mistype that variable, you'll get an undefined error, and it'll keep you from, basically messing up your code.
Okay.
So, matter of fact, let's do that now. We'll set up our types just to be safe. We're going to go ahead and we'll go up here, and we're going to create a const called add cart, and that's going to be equal to the string of the same thing, add cart. And then we'll have another one called remove cart.
Instead of using the underscore, could you had used camel case, or camel case is not allowed?
It's allowed, but it's not best practices for a reducer. This is kind of like the method set in place to use when you're using a reducer and a switch case, is to have it all capitals and with an underscore.
Okay.
So now in our case, instead of calling that string, we can just call our add cart. And like, see how I just mistyped that? If I had add cast in there, I would get an error in JavaScript now saying that add cast isn't defined. But if it was just a string and I mistyped that, I wouldn't get that error. So I wouldn't really know what's wrong with my code unless I comb through it. So we're going to have the case add cart, which takes a colon, and then you give it what you want it to do. So, okay, when I add something to the cart, I'm going to return something, because we're going to return a new state object. We're not going to return anything modified from our initial state. We're going to return something new. And we're going to return an object, and in that object, we are going to set our items. Actually, we got two in there, so we're going to spread out state. We're going to call dot 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 state, so we do not lose our total. And then in there, under the items portion of that state, we are going to take and add an array, because it's already an array. We're going to spread out, because we want to add to this. We're going to spread out state dot items, and then we're going to add something to that. And what we're going to add is our action dot payload. So from this action, we're going to be sending two things in whenever we dispatch this reducer. We're going to send in a type for what we want it to do, and a payload of any data that we want to add or change or manipulate state with. Everybody follow up to this point?
Yes, please.
Okay. And that's pretty much it. That's going to add stuff to our cart. Now let's make another case. And we'll call this one remove cart. And separated by a colon, and this is going to return as well. And this one gets a little funky with the logic. So we're going to spread out our state. And then we're going to set items. Ooh, I missed a period, didn't I?
Yeah.
Period. We got items. And we're going to set the items to an array. That's going to take in, let's see, we're going to have, this is going to be a filter. So we're going to have, let's see, we're going to take state dot items dot filter, and in each item we're going to look for if let's see, did I do that with 3 IDs? Let's go look at our method for that cart real quick, just to make sure I got my logic right, because I'm not staring at it right now. So that's probably app.js, where we're removing the cart. Okay, so we're seeing if item ID equals ID and if item name equals name. So this is basically the logic that we want to run in our state, to the point to where we can literally, let's see here, where's that close up at? At the end of filter right there. Yeah, we could just grab this whole thing right from filter. We're gonna copy this. We're gonna go in our reducer. And we're gonna paste that in. So if the item ID and the item name equals name, but here it is. See, this is where we gotta change it because this reducer doesn't know what the ID is. It's gonna go off of the action dot payload dot ID and the action dot payload dot name.
Okay.
Because that's where we're sending in through our action here through our reducer. And if delete single, I got to figure out where she's getting at. That was added to this. Let me see where that's at. Delete single true. Delete single false. She added this in here when she was doing something with that. I wonder why. We might remove that for now. We might have to fix some bugs. Let me check. Yeah, I'm combing through the code. When Christina did the, let's see, that would be in the modal. When she did the styling, she added that in, and I got to see why. Because our methodology for state has to stay similar. That was that in parts card where she calls that? On click props.add cart.
Yeah, I'm not sure where she
And
added
she's
that.
got props.part coming in to add cart. Coming from the store container. Trying to see what was the name of that one. That was the parts card. Let's go to app. We bringing in the parts card in here anywhere. And we're bringing in cart details. Okay, category container. And in the parts card, she's sending the cart remove and the cart add. The part is the displayed item. The modal is the modal. Why is she using that? Now we're trying to figure out how this is working. So she's got props.part that she's adding to the cart. The remove cart, props.part ID, props.part.name.
Where is the delete single defined in the app, though? It has to be defined in the
That's,
scope of that function.
she's got it as a state in app. All right, she defines it right here. Let delete single equal false. And then she sets it to true right here, but it's never set to false. So yeah, we're just gonna eliminate that out of our reducer and see what happens. We're gonna say if that, if action.payload.item and action.payload equals name. Oh man, I probably should have looked at this sooner. Okay, so if the item and name equals, we want to remove that because that's what we're sending to remove. Live debugging here, sure. Maybe if I set it to not, let's get rid of this stuff here. So we have our if else statement. So if, Okay, so basically that's what we're going to do. If it is true, we're not going to do anything. Otherwise, we're going to return the item. I think that's the way I originally set it up. So the if does nothing. The else returns the item. So that should work. All right. And that, in a nutshell, is the reducer.
Okay, wait. So you have if. So you're taking the second if statement out.
Yep. I'm just going to use a regular if-else statement, and it's going to say if the item ID is equal to the action payload ID and the item name is equal to the action payload name, so they're equal to the object we want to remove. We don't want that ending up back in our array of items, so it's not going to do anything with it. But else, if it doesn't match, it's going to return that item back into our array. And if I remember right, you don't even have to put null in here. I've tried to do it with like the exclamation points in here, and it won't return anything. I remember doing that when I was debugging this originally. It's we'll try it, and then we'll just see what happens. So where's our functionality at for that? So now all we have to do is tie in this functionality on how we're going to use that. So in app, we got to bring in a couple of things.
Copy your reducer, what you have right now, and paste it in the channel.
Sure.
I've done something wrong.
There you go. We're going to go into app.js, and we got to bring in a couple things in here. The first thing we got to bring in is our reducer. So we're going to import our cart reducer from, we got to go up a level. No, we don't. And we're going to reducers and our cart reducer. And we also want to bring in our our initial state from there too. Actually, I could do that from the same file. What am I doing? We could bring in cart reducer and initial state.
Okay.
So we're going to bring those in because we're going to use a hook from React to implement this, and it's called use reducer. So bring that in up here with your React imports, because we're going to use that hook to implement this reducer. And with that hook, it gives us some methods. It returns us the state object, so we can use that state object to display to our screen. So basically, think of if use reducer was like use state, we're going to get our state object in that first parameter. And then our second parameter, instead of having a setter, it's going to have this thing called dispatch. And what dispatch does is it dispatches the action that we want into that reducer. And just so we stay clear on that, let's bring in our actions too. So we'll bring in add cart from there and remove cart.
Okay.
Our card. We're going to bring all that in from our reducer because we're going to use all four of them in here. So in order to do this, we're going to set up similar to state. In fact, we won't have the state anymore. Oh. We're going to have a reducer state. So we'll have a const that first value is going to be state. And the second one's going to be the dispatch. And that's going to be equal to our use reducer hook. And inside of our default of our use reducer, we got to give it two things. We got to tell it what reducer to use, which is our cart reducer. We want it to use our cart reducer. And then the second parameter it takes in is our initial state. So now we gave it our initial state that we created in our reducer, and we gave it our reducer function that we created. And in return, it's going to give us two methods that we can run, which are state, which allows us to pass state through all of our components, And then dispatch is what we use to change or create new copies of that state. So now we're going to change, everybody follow to that point?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, here's our first error. Expected assignment function call but saw expression. Cool. And cart reducer. Line 2913, we shouldn't have it. Return, that should be right. Why is that giving me an error? That's weird. That should be working.
It's yelling at the state?
So you're yelling at this return right here.
Which one?
Right here. Oh, line 29. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's yelling at state. My linter is telling me
Oh,
that.
that's why. You got to return to state.
Yeah.
There we go. That's better. So make sure you put return on your default. It's like, stop yelling at me.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
was wondering why my linter was yelling.
So all of this methodology here in our set cart, and we're spreading out and doing all this stuff, we're not going to use any of that in this function anymore. We're going to have our cart remove, do something completely different. And what we're going to do in our cart remove is it takes in an ID and a name parameter that we're sending in, right? So that's how we're going to dispatch our action. So we're going to call dispatch is the first thing that we called. Oh, dispatch. We're going to dispatch. Let me go back to my cheat sheet. And dispatch expects an object. So in the object, the first key of that object is going to be the type, which the type is, in this case, we're removing from the cart. So our type is remove cart. And then the next thing that we have is the payload. So these are both the actions. Is that kind of adding up to you guys now? We're going to dispatch these actions. The first one is the type. So the reducer knows what action to run in the case. And the next thing is the payload in case we're sending any data to it. And in this case, we are. We're sending an ID and a name. So our payload is going to be, let's see, does it have to be an object? Payload. Yeah, we'll have a payload that's going to have an ID and a name. So if that's correct, that removes that. Well, let's get rid of some errors here too. We're going to make this so it saves our state. I didn't export those? Oh, no, I didn't. Yeah, you got to export these two as well. Shame on me for not exporting those. All right, yeah, don't forget to export your add cart and remove cart out of your reducer. Let's go back into app, and I want to fix these errors first, where our set cart is not defined and all that stuff, because we're not using set cart anymore. And that's on line 56. Yeah, that's all right. We'll be changing that in a minute. You know what? I'll just uncomment this to make some of them errors go away. All right. So we're going to change to our state now. So let's go down here and see where our state is for that. Cart is going to be equal to state now, down here. So anywhere you see where just cart is called, change that to state, because that's the state coming from our reducer. And we can name those anything we want, truthfully. So I can change the state that comes out. I could change that to cart and not have to change those. Matter of fact, you guys want to do that so it makes a little more sense? Am I hearing yeses, nos, maybe? I got nothing. All right, I'll keep going the way it is then. Fine, be that way. So we're setting any of our cart values to our state, which is our state coming out of this use reducer hook. So that's what we're going to be displaying there. And now we have just a dispatch in our cart remove that's going to dispatch the remove cart case, and it's going to give it a payload of the ID and the name of what it wants to remove. So that ID and name, like if you go over to our cart reducer, that is our, where's that? Action payload ID and our action payload name. That's what we're sending to it right there. Now let's do our add cart real quick. Let's get that out of the way too. So we'll comment this out. We're going to add new. This is also going to be a dispatch. We're going to call it just dispatch. We're going to give it an object. It's going to have a type. This type is going to be add cart. And then it gets a payload, which is the data that we need to put in our reducer. And our payload is going to be the part. Everybody follow up to that point. All right, I'm going to go ahead and uncomment this or comment out the state now and see if we get errors. Cart is not defined, line 65. 65, that's because cart is now state. Set cart is not defined on line 76. Why do we have set cart in there? That's cart details. Why is that not an add cart function? Cart details, what are we calling set cart at in here? Props.cart.items.reduce, that gives us our total. And then we're mapping over some stuff. We got props.cart remove in here. Remove from cart. Cart total. It looks like we don't even need that in there. That shouldn't even be there. So let's go into cart details where set cart is. We're just going to erase that. That's not needed. That was extra. Oh, our code's working again. Now, just out of curiosity, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to console.log the action. See if we could see this working in real time. So only thing we're manipulating the cart. So we're going to go to motherboards and I'm going to select a motherboard and then let's see if we break something. We're going to add that to the cart. Add to cart. Oh, did you guys see that console log just pop up down here?
Mm-hmm.
You see, this is the object. This is what we sent in as the action to our reducer. And if you look, our cart totaled out. So let's go check our cart and see what it is. And it's there. It's working. First try. Look at that. I haven't tried the remove yet, but look, first try. We got, we're working through a reducer now. So now if I take, and remember, we all started with this initial state right here, right? So I want to show you something else. Let's go ahead and console.log. Actually, I could do this in app. You know that? I'm going to save this again. We're going to go in here. And in app, I want to console log. I got to do it under my reducer. I want to console.log our initial state. And I'm going to console.log our state. That's coming out just to verify that we're not manipulating that initial state. So our log initially hit. See lines 37 and 38, they should match right now. They're both zeros. So now let's go to our home route. And we'll go to storage. Western Digital Blue, we're going to add that to the cart. And did you see our console log just hit? Here's our initial state. The one that we don't want to change, it's still fine. And then here is our new copy of state that now has an item in it. So we know our reducer is serving its purpose. We are not manipulating our initial state object. We are getting a new state. Everybody follow with that?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Let's add another one. Let's get 2 of them. Yep. So yeah, definitely. It's initial state still saying 0. Now we're up to 2 items in there. We're still not getting our total for some reason. I think it's because we got to we got to add something to our reducer for that, I'm sure. Let me check out the cart details. You know what, before we do that, let's see if our remove function works. Ah, it took it out, but it just took out both of them. Weird.
Not changing the number.
Total is not a number. What happened there? Items array 0. Okay, so our methodology in our cart is acting a little funky for remove. I wonder if that's because of that delete single thing. Why did it change both of them? Okay, here we go. We called remove cart. Our remove cart, our payload was ID and name undefined there. Where's the first time I hit it? Right here. So ID and a name of Western Digital Blue. Maybe do I have to do this null? Let's try putting null in there and see what happens. Return null. Oh, let's add this to the cart. Let's add this to the cart. Check our cart. I just want to remove one. Nope, it's still popping both of them. But it's still saying we have an array of 1.
That's null.
So we still have it in there. It's only removing 1, but it's not displaying any. So why is that? Live debugging happening. Let's check out our cart details and see how this is rendering. So we're taking props.cart.item.map. It's returning an item name. Our cart total is props.cart.items.reduce. That should be working. I don't know why. Cart total is cart total. I'm getting cart total is not a number. Props.cart.items. Okay, let's check out app. We're sending in the cart as state and cart remove as a function. So we're getting state. State should have an items. Yeah, and it's there. Is it because of it? Is there something with a re-render holding this up?
Mm.
Man, there's a bug in the system.
You love bugs.
Yeah.
It has to do with the delete single.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out where she's even referencing that in here, though.
Yeah, no, I couldn't. I was worried about that when I was going through it. Because originally I was going to set up a reducer with context, and that's what stopped me dead in my tracks.
Yeah. Let's go back home. I want to try and do something. Let's check it out. See, it's not even rendering it. Why is it not rendering it? So let's just try and add something real quick. Add to the cart. Now, if I click on the cart, I've only got one. Why do I only have one? Let's see what that looks like. I'm showing two. Oh, it brought in another one as an array. You see that? That must be something in my methodology there. I'm
Oh,
returning an array when I shouldn't. So let's check out where I'm doing that.
Let's return item default.
I'm calling filter and items is an array. So that's why right here. Let's get rid of that array. I was putting an array in an array. Too many arrays. Let's try again. Let's add that to the cart. We'll add some memory to the cart. We should have two items in our cart. Let's remove this one. Hey, that's what it was. My bad.
Let's try removing the last one and see.
What's that?
Try removing last one and see if it still works.
Yeah, it all is working. I just removed the last one. And you guys see what I did? It's in our remove cart function in our reducer. I had this where I call my filter wrapped in an array. So what it did, it returned an array within an array because filter returns an array by default. So if I remove that initial array that I called it in, this is just going to return our new array that we need. So if you just get rid of them square brackets that were surrounding this state items filter and down here at the closing, it all works. It's working. It's working. That's still driving me nuts. I got to put that back in too. Right there, it should redirect you back to home. So yeah, we still got items in there. We can remove this one. It keeps that one. Cool. Remove that one. Awesome. And that is, in a nutshell, that's reducers with the use reducer hook. Did I melt any noodles? Did everybody follow that? We got any questions?
Let's bust it into a context.
Yeah, I suppose we could.
I think I still have some errors actually.
Oh, share your screen. Let's see what your errors are.
Let's take care of that.
Let's fix them.
I'm gonna try to do my best to follow along.
Was I going too fast?
No, you're good.
Yell at me when I'm doing that. Slow me down.
All right.
All right, line
So-
65, cart's not defined. Yeah, change that cart to state.
Okay.
Save that. And now
so-
line 73, you probably got the same thing in there as a prop. Yeah, that cart is now our state value.
Okay.
Save that. All right, now let's, did you fix your reducer where I broke it?
Oh yeah, I took out the square brackets on there.
Perfect. All right, this should work then. Oh, it took them all out.
Oh dear.
Oh, because they were the identical product. That's why.
Oh. So if we just add that one and then add this one,
Yeah.
it probably won't.
Yeah, there we go.
Oh. So I guess
Yeah,
there's one more little bug.
Yeah, well, it's because they have just regular IDs. It's not automatically generating an ID each time you add one. You can
That's
fix
true.
that bug by giving it a new ID in the cart and having it, okay, this object is now this ID number, and then check to see if they match and have them remove them individually. But that's kind of outside of the scope of the project. That's more
Okay.
fun.
Hey, Chris, I just got the weirdest message.
You did.
I got a message from SL for what the hell? An SL from Web 14? Wait,
Uh-huh.
this is Alan High. This is the guy that works for Zeit.
Yeah.
The guy that works for Zeit just sent me a message and asked me who deals with ISA communication.
I have
Why
no
would I
idea.
know that?
I'd send him front desk ticket, bro.
Yeah, that's what I
What
told
we
him.
do. Because you know it all, Tommy. You know everything. That's what you're the go-to, man.
But I was sitting there thinking, because he popped up and I was like, Web 11 SL. I was like, Web 11? Like,
That's a while ago.
Yeah. All right. Robert Joshua Prapti. Is it Kalade? Did I say that right? Just want to see if you all caught up and got it done.
No, I got an error.
All right. Got an error.
Yeah, because I didn't do it like separately. Do I have to do separately to use the reducer? I just continue with the yesterday's page context.
Yeah, because we didn't use context.
so what is the second argument on the user reducer again?
That's your initial state value.
Okay.
So like, let's say if you made a an API call per se, and you wanted to set that with that data you got back to your initial state, you could set it right in there and not even use the initial state in the reducer. You get what I'm trying to say there?
Yeah.
Like,
So we can actually,
we could go one step further, like if you, in our project here. Matter of fact, let's try that. Let's experiment. We got a little bit of time, right? Let's
well,
play
the
around.
Yeah, we got time.
We already made a reducer for our cart. We can make another one for the initial state or for the parts, but you don't even have to do that. We have no actions on it. See, that wouldn't work.
Mm.
But we can verify it by doing something else. We could uncomment this. Actually, not even do that. We'll just take where our initial state is right here. We'll set that to an object of items, an empty array, and a total equal to 0. We'll save that. Everything will probably still work, other than our console logs aren't going to add up. But let's see what happens. Go to memory, add to the cart. We'll go over here to this memory, add to the cart. Go to our cart. It's still there as our initial state, and we can still remove stuff. So yeah, you could do it that way. Just drop, like if you had an API call and you were bringing in something, you could drop it right in here, and then in your reducer, you don't even need this initial state.
Ah,
That initial state that comes in, initial state is not exported because I'm importing it. Let's leave that alone so we don't have errors. I'm importing it, but not using it at this point. But where that initial state comes in is when we do Redux. Redux kind of relies on that initial state. Like you'll see in a reducer, it'll be state equals initial state, like this when we get into Redux. That's a conversation for another day. Redux is another thing all in its own.
Okay, so I think I have this set up here. You want me to share my screen real quick?
Sure.
Okay, so what I've done is I got the cart reducer. Sorry. I pulled out the initial state from here. Don't need it.
Okay.
Made a context. Put the initial state in here. And then the context provider is just going to take in the reducer. And I don't know why I have create factory here. I don't even know what that is. And then it's going to take in the cart reducer and the initial state. And then the values, instead of passing all those props like we did before, we're
Yeah.
just going to pass in the initial state and dispatch.
I don't think you want to pass in the initial state though, because that's never going to change. You'd want to pass in where you have cart and dispatch.
So should it be cart and dispatch?
Yeah, or you can call, like I named it state in ours, but you change that to cart.
This?
Yeah, initial state, that's just going right into the reducer, and after that, it doesn't get messed with again. So if you want the state for your application, you want what's coming out of the use reducer hook, which would be cart, the way you have
Okay.
it labeled.
So just cart?
No,
here?
no, right where in your values there. Yeah,
Okay.
just make that the cart.
Okay. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
So just
Yeah.
cart.
Yeah,
and
you're basically
dispatch.
just gonna pass the cart and the dispatch out of your use reducer hook.
So this should set it up to where an app, if we made another context for parts, there would literally be nothing in here.
Pretty much. Yeah, like your cart add and your cart remove, you're just using those to call the dispatches.
Mm-hmm. And that would be handled.
You'd be
From
pulling
the
them out,
reducer?
of context.
Yeah.
So like if you go into app.js where those functions are, yeah, you just modify these functions to use the dispatch, but you would have to use it from the context.
I don't even think we would have to do that. Because they would just be getting passed down from the provider.
Yeah, but you still have to dispatch the case to the reducer somehow. So you'd have to call the dispatch from context, because that's tied into that reducer.
But we wouldn't need that in app, right?
Well, that's where our functions are to call the dispatch. So like, you know, where you have your cart remove function right there.
Yeah.
Your cart remove function would be have to come from what am I trying to say? The dispatch out of context, so it works with that reducer, and you would dispatch your case right there when that function's called.
I got you. All right. Let me.
What you could do is rather than putting that in a context the way you did, where you were setting your values in app, you could set those values to the use reducer values.
Yeah.
Right there.
Oh.
And that way it all stays within the scope. So basically you'd bring your reducer in an app with its dispatch in a state, and you would set those values to your context right there in app where you're wrapping it, and do it that way.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, it's only a 1:15 on my end. We did that in an hour. I thought it was going to take longer. Oh, Prapti had errors. Let's check out some errors.
Yes. You
Yeah.
sure, Prapti?
I have to add in app.js, all the constant stuff.
Oh, well, let's fix your first error in the cart reducer. You see where you have total equals 0? That should be total : 0 on line 7. Because that's yeah, get rid of the equal sign. There we go. That should fix that one.
You know, a lot of times, Prapti, that happens because you'll hear someone say total equals when they're referring to an object, which state or initial state is always an object. So when they say equals, they actually mean colon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
And then on line 10, it's action dot type. It's dot notation from the action object on line 10. You have
Alright.
a comma.
oh, up here. Okay.
Yeah, make that a dot. Because action's a big object, and we're going after the type.
Oh,
So
perfect.
now we're past the cart reducer. We just got to parts cards defined but never used.
But the app.js is not correct.
All right, let's see why.
Card details.
Bring it in the reducer. Yeah, that's just a warning. I don't think that's an error.
Yeah, it works here, but my app.js is not correct. Why does it work then?
Well,
Because
why is app.js not correct?
no, it's not correct because I have to add the const variable, which I didn't add it. So
All right, let's take a look at app.js. So go ahead and scroll down and let's see what's going on with it. All right, you have state and dispatch in here. You have your cart remove, cart add. They're both adding the dispatch. ID name, that looks right. The only thing you got left is to pass the state from that app. So scroll down a little bit.
up here.
Okay, so we have the providers in here from context. So we got to get that state
So that
in
passes
there and that method. See, yeah, this is yeah, I don't think this is gonna work this way because we got the context wrapping on the outside. So we'd have to bring in that same reducer into part context or into cart context. I'm sorry.
in
So go into cart context. Let's see if that works. Let's see if we can just bring it in multiple times.
Okay, so let's see if it works.
Yeah, it's still working, but it's using the context. I don't think it's using the actual.
It works, but why does it working?
Because you're still using the context stuff. We're not even using that reducer right now.
Oh, that's why it's working. Okay.
Yeah. Let's see. Click in cart context.js. Let's have a look in there. Let's see if we can make this work with the context. Okay, so yeah, we have our add cart and everything in here. So let's see, cart, just set cart. Yeah. All right, so let's bring in our reducer and everything into here.
Okay. So that's from.
Yeah, you can copy it right from app. You're actually going to need everything from app for the reducer, and it's going to have to go in this context.
So copy up to here.
Yeah, we'll go into context and we'll remove what we need to remove. So go ahead and comment out your cart add and cart remove functions that are in here right now, and that state up at the top. So if you scroll down, you got to add in here too, I'm sure. Yeah. Comment out line 26. Yeah, comment out that. Comment out your remove one, which is the one right above it. And then comment out that state that's on line 7. And then go ahead and just create a new line between 6 and 7 and paste all your stuff in there. That way we have both of them in here to reference. And you're probably gonna have to do your imports as well. So yeah, you're gonna need to bring in the use reducer hook from React. So where you have use state, just put in use reducer as well.
Okay.
And then bring in everything from your reducer. You want to import the cart reducer, the dispatch, or I mean the and the 2 dispatch actions, add and remove. So that'd be destructured in curly braces. Cart reducer, cart add, and cart remove, all 3 of them. Oh, that's the wrong one. It'd be all capitals, I'm sorry.
Ah,
Or add cart and remove cart, I think they're called. My fault. Yeah, add cart and then remove cart. And those come from your cart reducer file. Dot slash. All right. No, it wouldn't be the context. You might have to go up one more. So hit backspace a couple times, get dot slash again. So I need 2 dot slashes in there. There we go. And reducers. Oh, no, you want to go into reducers next. It'll actually give you a hint. Like if you type in R, you'll see a reducers file.
where is the reducer file?
Oh, well, the IDE tells you. As a matter of fact, well, I'll show you that real quick. Go back to where you were and there's backspace or the RE and that 1 slash. Just get rid of those.
Okay.
And I'll show you. Get rid of the RE too. Now just push forward slash and watch what the IDE does. There's your reducers file. You can literally click on it now.
Okay.
And then slash again. And it shows you your cart reducer. So yeah, it'll guide you through the file path.
Yes, that's correct.
So we have those. Now we need to change a couple of things in our context for the cart. So scroll down to keep going down to our value, change where it says cart to state.
Up here.
Yeah, change where it says cart and change that to say state. And you would be removing the set cart completely. So erase that whole line. No. Erase state cart and cart. Oh, Control Z, back up.
Okay.
Erase where it says cart and state cart. And get rid of cart and just type in state. State, comma. Because we got rid of the comma. There we go. Now you're sending the state, the cart remove, and the cart add functions.
Okay.
All right. It says data is not defined. Where are we asking for data from in
8.
cart context?
Oh, up here. Use state.
Are we not importing the data anymore?
That
No.
shouldn't be in the cart context. That should be in the
In the part context, right?
part.
Yeah.
Part context.
Yeah, just go ahead and erase that line. All right, save that. Let's see if this works. All right, what do we got? Type error. Props.cart is undefined because
Gotta
we
go
called
get
it
rid of
state.
props.
Okay. That's the cart header. This one.
Yeah, we're not bringing in props anymore. So scroll down to where the props was coming in. We're using context called carts. Yeah, erase where it says props. Down
This
there on line 32, where it says props.cart, get rid of the props part
okay.
because it's coming from context now. That should light up. And now we're getting cart is undefined in cart header. So it's saying the cart from context because it's not called cart anymore, it's called state. Okay, we can fix that real quick so we don't have to type a bunch of codes. Go back into your cart context where we're using the use reducer because we could change these names. You see where you have state and dispatch on line 9?
Mhm.
Change where it says state to cart. We're just going to change that back to cart. And then go back down to where your values are for your context and change that back to cart where it says state. Change that back to cart. And let's save that. Stuff started to work a little bit.
Let's see.
And add it to the cart. Add it to the cart. Go view the cart. Oh, we're adding more parts. Oh, we're missing some parts in the cart. So we have a little bit of an issue there. Go ahead and go back into your code. Let's check our reducer because it looks like our reducer was working. We're just logic's probably off. So the cart reducer.
Where is the reducer?
So scroll down to the reducers file right there. All right, let's see what we got. Let's go to remove cart. I believe that's where the issue was. Scroll down. That
I
looks
like that
right.
your mind was here though, using the context and the reducer.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so we're calling it state now, but scroll up a little bit. That should still work because we're bringing it in as state from the reducer. All right, but our add cart function worked. Our remove we didn't get anything from the remove. All right, let's throw some console logs around. Let's see, that's our add cart. Let's check our payload. Go to our action. Go back to your context. I bet that's what it is. We're not getting the payload into context. Cart context. Scroll up to the add cart function. Payload is ID and name. Cart remove is ID and name. The cart add, we're sending the part. Oh, okay, that's an object there. Just go ahead and get rid of the curly braces around part because that's already an object. Save that and see if it works. Moment of truth. Hey, there they are.
Nice.
Trying to figure out why I removed 2 at once. I must have had the same one in there. Yeah, there we go. It's working with context now. Check it out.
Thank you so much.
No problem. Did everybody else follow with that? Quite possibly? Or did we lose everybody?
Do you guys want to do an afternoon project again today? Hunter, Josh.
Yeah, I'd be down for that.
Chris, do you think that's a good one that I sent you?
Oh, let me look. Yeah, that should be good.
Yeah, it shouldn't be too much, but it'll let them use both concepts.
Yeah, you guys comfortable with using context with the reducer method? Think you can tackle that this afternoon?
Yeah, I'll definitely give it a look.
All right, cool. I'm surprised not many questions on the reducer because they're normally weird looking compared to like regular state.
I don't know. I was looking at it, especially with context yesterday. It seems like it's not terribly far off from what we've already looked, at least intact.
Yeah. Cool.
Be all right.
Do you find that it's typical to use both of them? Because I know context basically separates off state, and it seems like producer, in a kind of way, does that as well.
Yeah,
you
but
pick like one or the other. Or?
and with Redux, you're pretty much going to be anything global state's going to be done through a reducer. The going trend that I'm seeing just from looking at Twitter feeds and stuff of people that do this in the industry, when you call use state for the third time, they normally erase them all and just use one big use reducer hook instead of state to keep everything condensed.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
But yes, context with use reducer is commonplace.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I saw people just using that to get around Redux. I think you'd mentioned something about that the other day,
Yep.
maybe.
And they're using a custom hook involved with it too. So they're dropping that custom hook in there with context, and they're using a custom hook to basically pass all of your global state around through multiple reducers. Basically does what Redux does, because Redux has this thing where it allows you to combine reducers. So I can have like 5 reducers, 5 different global states, and I put them into the Redux store under combined reducers. And then whenever I want to pull one of those out, when I run my use selector hook, I just call like that state dot whatever one I want, and then I pull it out. So they're doing that with a custom hook. That's the power of Redux. That was the main power of Redux, is that you can have multiples upon multiple reducers all combined into one global state management and just pull out which one you want depending on what component you were in. So literally carrying 6 or 7 different global states, let's say, but just using one call with Redux to get it. Yeah. But with the new custom hooks, you can do that.
The project I sent Chris that we'll give you guys for the afternoon it's not overly complicated, really.
Oh, I better stop recording too. Otherwise the file's going to get big.